We are just about to go to a break, but before we do, I am very excited. It's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker today. We've been really excited to think about this space of inclusive AI and how these two words fit together, right? There are entire worlds in each of them, but why is this important? Why does AI need to be inclusive? What does that mean exactly? So to take us through that today, it's my honor to welcome Dr. Rumman Chowdhury from a lot of places, but the current United States Science Envoy for Artificial Intelligence.
Thank you so much. Let's see if this is on. Here we are. So I've been told this is called a sparkle talk. So I will do my best to sparkle. Let me know at the end, 1 to 5, if I am indeed sparkling. But what I'm asked to talk to you about today is how high are the stakes for AI to be inclusive? And what a great question. I spent a long time simply thinking through what does that question mean? So first of all, what are the stakes? What do we mean by inclusive and how? I think the panels that you've seen today have really talked quite a bit about how one would go at it. So I want to give you a bit of a flavor of why this matters. So as was mentioned, I have 2 hats I wear at the moment. I have multiple hats all the time that I wear, but also the two that I wear the most often. Number one is this United States Science Envoy for Artificial Intelligence. It's a really interesting and really cool role. I'm privileged to be a citizen data scientist, so I'm not an employee of the Department of State. But I am representative of the values of our society, of our community, of our country, as it relates to artificial intelligence when I go abroad and I speak to digital ministers, e-safety commissioners, home affairs, cybersecurity professionals, as well as students and young people, entrepreneurs, et cetera. So I'll give you one example of how high the stake. Oh, the other hat I wear is Humane Intelligence, which is my nonprofit. We're building a community of practice around algorithmic assessment. So this idea of how high the stakes are, I'll give you specifically an anecdote. So I, twist my arm. They made me go to Fiji. I know, I really served my country there. But during my time at Fiji, I, met with their Department of Home Affairs. I mentioned safety commissioners, et cetera. And they all said the same thing. The generative AI internet is coming for us. What do we do? Very specifically, they are in the very near future getting broadband internet access, and they have never had it before. In fact, some stats for you, 30% of the island of Vanuatu, which is in the Pacific Islands, is not online. And actually, the 70% who are not on quite regularly. So in Fiji, there are a lot of young people on social media. It is just not as pervasive. So if we are sitting here in this room in New York City talking about how generative AI and AI will impact our children, our digital well-being, our mental health, what does that mean when we have imposed this technology among that 30% in Vanuatu, right? So what does that mean for cyberbullying, addiction, fraud, all sorts of issues that come up. I'll also add this. These governments are vastly under-resourced. So when I talk to the Cyber Safety Commissioner, Tejaswari Devi, who's phenomenal, and she travels to RightsCon, to TrustCon, to all of these trust and safety events, and she has the same conversation. What is a small nation state like mine to do? I have 3 people on my staff, and there are now millions of children that are going to be flooded with spam, right, with stalkers, harassers, et cetera. They have already had instances of deep-faked pornography being shared in schools. So what does that then mean? So if we're going to talk about stakes, these are the stakes at hand. But I'll show you the other side to the stakes. This is what we do with Humane Intelligence. One of the other things I got to do was actually work with young entrepreneurs. The Pacific Islands had set up their very first angel investment fund. So I had the honor of being in the room with individuals who had been quite successful in business, who wanted to give back to their community. And they truly saw generative AI as a way to bring, and also this increased broadband internet, as a way to bring their young people into this competitive entrepreneurial market. So the stakes are on both sides. So one, there is this story of all the harms that can occur. On the other end, when I sat there and watched these young people pitching, do you want to know what the problems are they're solving? Back to the comment of let's just move away from chatbots, let's solve real problems. Maybe it won't be the people who are from the privileged Western countries. Maybe we're the ones that think a lot about, oh, I need an app to, walk my dog or wash my floor. But what these young people were thinking about is how do we solve the critical climate problems? Because the sea level is rising in the Pacific Islands every single year. How do we create more efficient methods of farming using artificial intelligence? One young woman was pitching a hydroponics AI startup that actually was already yielding cheaper and more bioavailable vegetables. So they are the ones that are tackling the big problems because the big problems overwhelmingly face them. The most beautiful thing about young people, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, is they're unafraid to look at the problems straight in the eye. They're like, well, here's what's happening, right? Sea levels are rising. We are disconnected from each other. We are facing mental health and loneliness issues. We are going to be the ones to tackle. And again, I was so inspired by these young people. So when we talk about how high the stakes are to be inclusive, I want you to think about it in both ways. Number one is, what are the problems that will be introduced if we are not solving these issues as we introduce generative AI to the global majority? And the second is, what is the promise and potential of the global majority audience to solve the problems that are really going to impact the rest of the world? Have I sparkled? Applause if I've sparkled. Thank you.